out there going, oh, I see some authoritarianism out there. I think I see some Trump likes authoritarians. It's just, my God, like, people, I don't know, like when the boot finally kicks in your fucking door, you might finally wake up and understand what's actually going on.
Somebody quoted Andrew Jackson, who said on Twitter yesterday, "I'm not against the Cherokee, just their leadership."
Hell yeah.
Sinner, brother.
We have a special guest.
Yes.
I'm hoping maybe there's one
Hello.
rant. You know, the people demand a rant. But anyway, Sina, it's great to have you.
Hello.
Maybe you've been watching the news and you can update us, because
what happened in the last hour?
So
that's how long it took Sina to get his hair.
Well, I think there was a huge. Oh God. Oh, sorry. There's like 15 things happening. There's a lot happening. There was another huge attack. I think it was like the 30th wave of Operation True Promise 4. And it's sorry, yeah, I'm just kind of getting started. What you guys been talking about? The war? Sure. Yeah, I think I just posted an episode that we did on Monday, right? What was it, Monday or Tuesday? I have no sense of time. With Jay and Lara, you and I did, Adnan, and I realized that like the 4 days or like 4 or 5 days that have gone since then, maybe more. It was maybe Wednesday or something. I don't remember now, but the war has accelerated at such an extreme pace. And the amount of violence being dished out to this region is really quite shocking. I mean, we've normalized this violence in our lives through this entity because it's just like normal. And partly it's because they have this media power that can just make things normal. Like they can make abnormal things normal and make normal things abnormal. And it's like this remarkable ability to just kind of ignore this incredible genocidal violence that's been extending outward and outwards. But I guess at the overall thing, I will say that the Americanization of this war was always going to be was always going to happen if it came this far, because I was trying to think about it today. What if the Israelis had just stopped? What if they stopped in maybe 6 months ago? What if they said, okay, fine. Like theoretically, we wouldn't be here, right? Theoretically, we wouldn't be here. But because they've decided that it's like, we're going to go for all the marbles, and they've now found themselves in this weird position of opening themselves up to a kind of attack that is both directly at them that they haven't experienced. Like the scale of the violence against them is something they've never experienced. And it's not just like the bombs dropping. I mean, the bombs are dropping and more drop tonight. And we aren't seeing the footage because they hide it, because for national security reasons, they hide it too. From their own people and from the outside world for good reasons. If you're like thinking from their perspective, yeah, for good reasons. What would be the point of letting these videos come out? You live in like a society built on censorship. It's not hard to censor stuff to like not get it go out or keep it. Now, mind you, I don't know how it actually works because a lot of Israelis have like Westoid relatives and they share stuff. So stuff probably trickles out. And there's also, the indigenous population too, who are filming this stuff, who can get it out. So it's weird. The Israelis can't do the thing that's happening in Iran, which is internet shutoffs. Like if you shut off the internet in Israel, they would die. That's not, you can't do that to a Westoid. That's like,
they would live the next day.
I live in this town. I live in a small town. Sorry?
They would live the next day.
There might be a delay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. But like, it's more, I live in this town and I always kind of joke with myself, like what would happen if my town had like an Islamic revolution? Like they would close all the LCBOs and liquor stores and people would die. Like literally people would die of like alcohol withdrawal. Like what would that like it was like, and I was like, yeah, that the Islamic Revolution probably wouldn't work here. Probably wouldn't get very far. But like that's the thing, like that taking internet away, taking Westoid life away from Israelis is way more powerful than destroying a fucking Merkava. A Merkava you can rebuild. A Merkava is like a Merkava you can fix. You can, you know, you who cares? You can just print money if you're them. Now, mind you, that's come to an end too, and we should probably get to that because there's a lot of financial news that has been happening since you guys started recording. The Nikkei is down 7% as of an hour ago. Same thing with the Korean stock market. I can't remember what it's called, but I think that part of what we need to understand from the perspective of the resistance of like how to hit these people is how to hit them at a societal level is that it's that the way they hit us, for instance, flying to the borders of Iraq and then firing these like advanced low radar signature standoff munitions, right, that are extremely powerful, extremely fast, basically like impossible to stop. Like those are responded to by Iranian missiles fired from the western, and landing somewhere, and some being intercepted, but most now it looks like aren't. Like I saw some videos tonight where they were just breezing past it. So it's interesting. This is getting truly out of hand for the imperialists. In all of this, I will say, like, they have a lot more to lose. I know that sounds really callous, given the fact that we have like 90 million people. It's just in Iran alone. Forget the wider region. But it's more in the sense that their sensitive spots are so sensitive that to see them go, to see that go is not something that they can sustain. Like the losses in the Gulf, not just the military losses, but like the financial losses, because like the whole thing like the whole money laundering machine needs peace. It needs stability. And it turns out Iran is the one guaranteeing that stability. Like I tweeted this earlier today, if American power is unable to stop Iran from inflicting damage to the Gulf, say, infrastructure, which is not what they've been doing. They've been hitting American targets there. It was the Israelis who started this kind of infrastructure war when they did a crazy genocidal rant. I just heard the word rant. A genocidal attack on Iran's fuel storage in the city in Tehran, which is insanely violent images coming out of that yesterday that just like haunted me all day. But these are punishment. That's basically what this is. This is punishment for not caving. So as the response to Iranians basically dismantling this like 30-year-long military buildup, along with kind of defrocking Zionist security doctrine or sort of security stability sort of projection. That's not a word, but you know what I mean? Like their ability to project this kind of safe home front that, oh, this is the safest place for Jews. It's objectively the most dangerous place for Jews right now, because you can't just make the missiles stop, and you simply can't make Iran go away. You can't make Iran open the Hormuz Strait. I think the funniest thing, those images are terrible. They're really bad. This is what happens when you have no red lines. I mean, this is what we're talking about. They have been doing a psyop today of, the Americans didn't want this, the Israelis did this was a surprise, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't buy it. This is all the same game. But this is what happens when you have no red lines. They do this. This is when you have no morals. And remember, even scarier, they want Gaza. They want Gaza. They want the land of Gaza. They don't want the land of Iran. They don't care if it's ruined, right? This is what makes them so traumatizing. And what's extra fucked, is that if you scrolled on All American, like I was on Reddit today, it was all just like trophies of look at Iran this morning, look at Iran. Like this is the level of sociopathy, right? Well, we went from like protect Iranians, protesters, their precious lives, to let's blacken the sky. I mean, this is so all of this is to say is that the escalation itself went from the plans of, okay, we're going to start a currency crisis, and then it will lead to wider street unrest, which we will then exploit to plant whatever to initiate a coup. That coup failed. Iranian, it really hasn't, the story of what happened in those 2 days in January hasn't really been exposed. I don't exactly know when, but at some point, Zarif and Rouhani were taken into some kind of arrest. They have not been heard from. And the fact that they haven't been heard from during all of this means tell you that like the strike, that it's real, that this news of them being arrested. So all of this is to say is that we are here because those earlier plans didn't work out. Like we're at plan C now, I think, of just like, okay, kill them all, like exterminate the brutes. Like this is exterminate the brutes mode. But unfortunately for them, the brutes in question have the ability to inflict immense amount of damage to their imperial. So this is an inflection point in history we've never seen. I mean, I'm not going to be the Iranian guy who's like, we are unique in world history, but we are unique in world history in this instance because they've never. This is not something any of us we foresaw it. I mean, I definitely knew that Iran could like stomp on the nuts of the American military buildup. I knew that. If I knew that, then people who actually know this stuff in fucking Langley and Virginia, whatever the Pentagon shit, they knew that too. And yet here we are. So either they want it to go to some kind of deeper escalation, which is to say nuclear, right? And so they took us here. So they're like, okay, we're going to go because the hope is Iran is decimated and they can have all of the Gulf and Iran, which I don't think is really possible. But like these are their fever dreams. But like this stage we're at is like they either want it to go all the way or they had no plans to see it go this far and they're making it up. So it's like I feel like I'm in one of these two modes, that it's either A or B, that like this has gotten them, and maybe like B leads them back to A, which is to say getting this deep unplanned is going to be like, okay, well, we're this far, let's just go all the way, bro. Like YOLO, we're dealing with sociopaths after all, like maniacal, psycho, Hitlerite, declining sociopaths. So I don't know. This is we're gonna get some financial shock this morning. I was informed that I was talking with my mom. My mom was like, "Yeah, I lost 10,000 on my retirement this last week." Like that's like my mom. Imagine what it's like for like millionaires and billionaires and this is their base ultimately, right? Like stock portfolio, like they hit us to the things we value, right? Like people, school, our infrastructure. We hit them in the only thing they value, which is their money, which is their fucking Scrooge McDuck money pit of like fake digital coins. That this is the only thing that they worship. This is the only thing that they have. So Iran's strategy is certainly working. And the question is like, what evil things like this is? They're in the like, let's turn it up to 11 mode, and the scale of evil. And this is where we're at. Like, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? So yeah. Also, again,
Well,
my new space to record in. Isn't it nice?
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's I mean, a lot of the things that you say, Sina, resonate with like actually what the tyrants at the head of this Epstein Empire have said themselves. I mean, Hegseth, he basically said, we can just try and exterminate the brutes. We will, unleash just violence. And we don't have to follow any, in fact, very proud of breaking any red lines that may exist in this, international law discourse. We're no longer going to be constrained by that because we're going to be full on imperialist, colonialists. And in fact, actually, they are trying to demonstrate in some ways a level of savagery. You know what it reminds me of? Of course, it reminds me of the Crusades. It reminds me of the cannibalism at Ma'arra that unleashed
always the Crusades.
Always the Crusades.
Kind of warfare. Now, do you realize that in the Latin West, in Christendom, when it actually kind of maybe meant something as an institutional formation, that in the Latin West, warfare and killing were, of course, considered sinful. And as a result, even if you were involved in something that could be framed or characterized as a just war, so-called, you still had to do penance for your sins, okay, for the violence that you committed. And so we have, for example, the list of penance for those who the Normans, for example, who fought at the Battle of Hastings and successfully, conquered. And it had been kind of agreed that it was okay, sort of quasi, all right, they had the better claim, etc. But they still had to go and do penance. However, something new happens with the so-called plenary indulgence for those who go on crusade, is that they were free from the penance that they would have to do for the violence that they caused, because there was a new concept of sacred or holy war where you demonized the other, and where Pope Urban II even declared that our enemy is Amalek. Okay, so this Amalek is not just some Netanyahu sort of thing. It actually comes from Crusader Christian adoption of Old Testament precedent in a way of warfare that does not respect any of the traditional kind of legal, moral, or spiritual boundaries of violence, because violence is so dangerous. It's horrible to kill and to shed blood. And Christianity, in its core, understood this, said it's not even allowed at all. Okay, maybe a completely unrealistic position in a world of global affairs, which is why they had to invent some kind of idea that would have unrestricted violence. So when they attacked in the cities of the Levant, a place in, for example, in Al-Ma'arra, there are reports that not only did they have the practice sometimes, which the Mongols also did, which was, of like massacring the whole city, so that people, if they like put up any resistance, so that, other cities would know that there's going to be a terrible fate for you. And this is, of course, what they did in Jerusalem. They massacred the entire, population. I mean, so much to the extent that they said going up to the Holy Temple Mount, i.e. they're talking about the Dome of the Rock and where the last people surviving had taken sanctuary in this holy place, that the chronicles, the Latin chronicles, say that it's on a hill. They say that it was like a river of charnel and blood flowing down the slopes from the mount, from where Al-Aqsa is. So they did do those things. But at Ma'arra, they even committed cannibalism, according to reports, to strike such fear into others as a form of terrorism. It was going beyond all boundaries of humanity and civilization to say, we will do to you something that is unthinkable in any social world that we share. So that's what we're seeing here, is the same kind of let's unleash all constraints and unleash a form of warfare that first it's Dahya doctrine, then you can say it's the Rafah or Khan Yunus or Gaza doctrine, what they did, and now they're trying to apply it, and the US is adopting it as well, to do this on, the people of Iran and the peoples of the region, precisely because, as you said, Sina, they know that they cannot really control Iran. What they need to do is de-develop it. They need to fragment and destroy it as a challenge, as a viable sovereign state that can be a challenge to Israeli dominance. And so if that means that it has to burn, its people kind of die, that it be chaos, they will do anything in order to achieve that goal of essentially underdeveloping. Like, Iran has made huge strides. Look at what they're capable of doing. Look at this incredible missile program. Look at the fact they are a threshold nuclear power. They have the potential to do that if they wanted to. So the point is that cannot be allowed to stand, that a sovereign nation with those capabilities and with those resources of energy, resources, not be allowed to continue on its path of development. So this war is partly an attempt to de-develop them. Walter Rodney wrote this very famous book, how Europe underdeveloped Africa through enslavement and the slave trade, the genocide essentially of 9 million people being enslaved, removed from their society and chained and working, for free in the plantations of, the New World, and through colonialism and colonial violence. This is the point. Europe only became a superpower in the so-called European takeoff because they were willing to unleash crusader-like colonial racial violence upon their foes, which went beyond anything that was understood as a norm in these societies that they were confronting. They were
Adnan, if I may, just to in that context, to draw viewers' attention to American history and the fact that I'm forgetting if it's Cotton or Increase Mather, but one of the Mathers in writing about the destruction of the Pequot people, who at the time, they were the ones who had the food and the resources and knew what the fuck they were doing. Allowance to go and slaughter them was because they were Amalek.
Yes.
And the United States proceeded then, based on this doctrine, if you will, across North America, engaging in genocide all the way throughout until, Turner's the problem of the frontier, right? Well, that's because there isn't anymore. And I guess we'd better remember the Maine so we can go out and start slaughtering Filipinos and Cubans and take this show on the global road. So sorry to interrupt you, man, but I was just chomping to add that. I think it's Cotton Mather. I don't have the exact quote. But yeah, the Pequots were Amalek. Come straight across the country to, I've got a friend who lives in Eureka, California, and they there had the Wiyot massacre as the American colonialist transcended, the North American continent. They end up there in Eureka, California, where the Wiyot tribe had finally been pushed out to a little spit of land that's sort of like small little islands, a spit of land connected that you can see if you're in Eureka. And some bastards whose names are still honored through streets in Eureka and environs went out there with clubs and fucking massacred largely innocent, civilians and for the most part, old people, women, and children. And they are honored to this day in the city of Eureka, California, which still doesn't really do Asians or Black people because we got rid of them when we burned them out in the late 19th century and the early 20th century. So this disgusting American genocidal history is still fresh with us. I have to say, I was watching The West. I wanted to see The West, the documentary. And I just became so disgusted and nauseated, like just a couple of installments through, looking at like pasty Anglo Americans, like with like a gun and a knife cross with their psycho eyes. And they're going to come to the state of California, which paid out $1.5 million in 1850 for Native American scalps. Because, the gold is there and fucking Amalek is here and we got to get rid of Amalek. So, here's some money to go and get rid of fucking Amalek and enjoy your rape along the way. Cause you don't get an extra fee for that, but some perks. So I'm sorry. I just, this entire American project is, and has been from the beginning, a genocidal, colonialist, and then subsequently imperialist project. And I'm just heartened to be able to see. And I think, before I die, the end of it, because it just fucking disgusts and nauseates me and has for decades. I'm glad that people who have been put off by my being nauseated about it and talking about it and, talking about where our tax dollars are going are finally actually fucking waking up. So I guess there is also a little weird schadenfreude there because now all of a sudden they give a shit. But yeah, Amalek. We are all Amalek to Benjamin Netanyahu and to this elite class of Zionist rapists and pedophiles.
That is really interesting. I'm going to have to look up the Cotton Mather. Great connection historically. So helpful, Dave. That was really important. Sina has posted here. I want to share it maybe if we can. Since he's
speaking of Schadenfreude,
he's become clearly the economist of the group. So here we are. What do you want to tell us about how insane
look at this
prices are
oh.
and their consequences?
Here, can you scroll down? Look at the chart. It's insane. Like it
Well,
speaks for
crude
itself.
oil, it's changing now, right? It's going up, 26.8%
Yeah.
up already.
But can you scroll down to the chart?
Oh, the chart. Oh, here. Okay, yes.
Look at that. Look at that.
Brent crude, right. 114. So we're at 114 a barrel now.
That's
What part of what
like
Mohammed
this,
Morandi
this
was
is, and
was,
it's gonna.
was
Oh, it's 114.
blue in the
Holy
face?
shit!
You forgot to go fill up your car, Cena. The truck. You foolish man for buying my truck at Gas Guzzler.
Mohammed Morandi
got a
said
hybrid.
exactly what was going to happen.
Sold Cena a truck and got a hybrid. Who's the smart one here?
Look at the doors open.
Well, it wasn't that one, but you know. But yeah,
No.
Dave, you were saying something about
in the
that.
context of Benji's excellent points about white racism and arrogance, many Iranian figures, including perhaps most importantly for an English language audience, Dr. Mohammed Morandi, were blue in the face for the last fucking 6 months saying exactly what was going to happen. Iran essentially through Morandi, like who's has served as a sort of unofficial both reporter and sort of interpreter for the nuclear talks for the JCPOA. He's been out every day, all day, under bombs. I mean, since June and before. I mean, for years, saying what would happen, exactly what Iran would do, and what would happen. He was even warning. He gave a kind warning to the family regimes of the littoral Gulf states to get out of town, because if the United States and Israel attack the Islamic Republic of Iran, then your countries aren't really going to be functional anymore. And so you should probably do all you can while you're packing up to make sure that your, daddy Trump, who you gave a $400 million plane and what trillions of dollars, which Trump bragged about milking the Arab cow, which he gave you, everything, what Iran was going to do to the Zionist entity, what Iran was going to do to American ships and groups. I'm just saying, like, nothing. Iran was very open about its capabilities and about what it was going to do in response, should, especially during periods of negotiation, it be attacked once again. So anybody clutching pearls over the price of oil, or, this was great. Did you guys see Mario Nowfall with Norm Finkelstein the other day? And Norm actually, he said, have you ever talked to Emiratis? And as Mario was saying, I think he was going to say, I'm here in Dubai. He's like, have you talked to them? I mean, they're like retarded. That you got to hear retarded in Norm's voice. But it's like, sorry, you asked for it, Mario. What didn't you get about get the fuck out of Dodge? If Dodge happens to be a Zionist supporting collaborationist family dictatorship of the Persian Gulf, thinking that can step up to Iran's mad skills. Just sorry, you're going to get owned, and they are getting owned, and they deserve to get owned. I'm not sure if I'm more gleeful about the ownership, if you will, of Iraq's 19th province that they refer to as Kuwait, or Dubai. I think probably Dubai is giving me a little bit more personal enjoyment. And I'm just going to say that openly. I've been disgusted watching the UAE grow into just a cancerous collaborational threat to the whole region and to itself. And so in many ways, I think some of the Sunni Arabs of the peninsular region will thank the Islamic Republic of Iran for liberating them from the American empire and from potentially their despotic family regimes.
Oh, I've been talking about, how at the root of the present, what I see as the present collapse of the empire, like, folks, this is not a once in a lifetime event. This is it's once in a lifetime event if you've been around for 550 years or something, right? It's an epoch changing moment. Everything is turning into its opposite. And there is a very special form, and the supremacy is what triggered it. But of course, based on the political economy that had served the supremacy for very long. And there's a very special form of white supremacy, which, infects not just white people, which is that white peoples are so smart that they've all like they're infinity chess playing all the time, and they must have had a plan going into all this. But I think we've reached the point where this empire is not just agreement incapable, it's not just negotiation incapable, it is plan incapable. You know, literally, I believe, collectively speaking, the strategic planning horizon of this empire is equivalent to Trump's attention span, which at best is 3 minutes, but if it's about him. Otherwise, he can't keep focused on anything. He never reads anything. He gets all his news from Fox News. Well, the empire is Trump. Trump is the empire. The empire is smoking its own dope. It's literally Al Pacino towards the end of Scarface. It's been smoking the dope so much, and it's coming out, you know, say hello to my little friend kind of thing. And Pete Exas is exactly this. It's the say hello to my little friend phase of the empire. Or even Milikovsky, who said yesterday, they will see the surprise, you know, nobody expected. And what was the surprise? A plan, premeditated, looking at the weather report, chemical attack on 10 million people, right? That was the surprise. These people have no idea. There is no plan. They have no ordnance left. You know, they don't have weapons left. They don't have anything left except bluster, except just pretending it's not happening, just, you know, lullaing themselves to sleep. Iran says, you started this, we'll finish it. And like a 5-year-old, Exas says, they started it, we'll finish it. It's like, makes no sense. The Epstein files, I've seen some, you know, 5D chess theories. They put it out so that they could desensitize all the rest. No, they have no idea what they're doing. They can't hold themselves together anymore. No, you know, nobody could control Marjorie Taylor Greene or Thomas Massey. Nobody could predict this. Those are the catastrophic events that are happening because the whole thing makes no sense to anybody. Like nobody in their right mind who isn't, even actual Satanists are up in arms because they go, this is not how you do proper Satanism. This is God. This is the false stuff. Go away. Get out of here. And so what are you exactly working for, you know? So you just have a bunch of people who are controlled by compromise and videos of themselves bothering, you know, innocent souls in unimaginable positions who continue on kind of, you know, autopilot. But the problem is if the autopilot is going straight into the wall and nobody can stop it, so that the only thing they have is accelerating. And they will accelerate. And I'm also saying it here simply for two reasons. First is because I'm on the life side of life, I don't believe death is going to happen to the planet. So forget about the nuclear holocaust. It won't happen. Also, just to think that it will happen just demoralizes us, serves no purpose, doesn't make us be useful. And you have a lot of adults in this room, you know, like you've had Lavrov, and they've actually killed the Zionists in Moscow. You understand? They have shut off any possible breathing oxygen for the Zionists who were very strong in Moscow. You know, you have 2 million Russians, 1 million of whom have nothing to do with Judaism whatsoever in the colony at the moment. And strangely enough, they're the most genocidal, you know, whatever crazies. But they can't, there's no space for them anymore. So you had Putin, I mentioned, you know, laying the biggest wreath you ever saw for Martyr Khamenei. And now you have Lavrov, you know, gunning down saying, we are going to create an atmosphere where this can't go too far. Like, you know, when the world's biggest nuclear power with missiles that actually work, unlike the US, you look at their cruise missile, a dud rate of 25%. Russian missiles are not like this. It's saying we're going to create an atmosphere in which this is not possible. When he has all the little, you know, chihuahuas or whatever you call them, low lives, pawn scum from the Gulf in front of him, and he says, so you're writing a resolution to the Security Council which only criticizes Iran and not the Americans or Israel? Don't you think you're a little bit hypocritical? Look a little bit, at your own backside, because it doesn't smell very good from where I'm sitting, and it's absolutely disgusting. You've not heard this from the Russians before. And so that's it. It's the perfect storm. You have the Chinese giving the most exquisite targeting ever. It doesn't matter. They can shut the entity can shut off the internet. They would do it, except, as Stina said, if they can't be on their telephone, they're out of Dodge the next day. They will actually swim back to Greece or to Cyprus just to get an internet connection, right? And maybe I would also. I don't know. I have to think about that. And they don't need to see videos. You guys on Twitter need to see videos so you feel good. But the Iranians don't. They get like probably 5 centimeter resolution information, real-time information from the Chinese satellites. What do they need? And also the Chinese, in case you're not aware, have the most advanced electronic warfare ship in the world. They have this thing that soon as you can see it over the horizon, no Western radar or detection system can actually know where it is. It drives them absolutely crazy, and it's somewhere in the Gulf. And it was also, by the way, during the 12 Days War. So it's, as my son said, I'd never thought I would say it until I saw Sina say it. It's Joe over. It's Joe over. It's all over, except, heartbreakingly, the genociding, because that's what these crazies do when they come down. And it's weird to say, but you know what? The Nazis were actually a mild version of those crazies, maybe because of Heinrich Heine or Goethe or something. The real loonies are the effing Brits. I mean, they bombed Dresden for no reason. They killed millions in India. These people are the devil incarnate. They are literally, they're born psychopaths. Look at their book of, what's it called? The Lord of the Flies. They imagine that if you put children on a desert island, they will turn into monsters to one another. You have to be crazy. And these people have studied other societies really well. They put everything in their British Museum. By the way, did you see the Chinese thing where they're mapping every single artifact in the British Museum, where it comes from, where they stole it from? They have everything, and they study it to define the society in the way, psychopathic children study a fly. They look at a fly and then they take off one leg and see what the fly does. Only the British could have invented this joke. The joke is, what do you call a fly with no legs? A walk. A walk. To make a joke like this, which I don't think exists in any other country than Britain except as a translation, it means you must have actually tortured the fly for kicks. And this is what those Brits do, and they are worse, believe me, than the Nazis. So the genociding is going to be pretty bad until it's brought down. And I think the Iranians, for miraculous reason, are in this point of history and this moment, in this conjuncture, where they are the ones who are going to, not on their own, right? It's the axis of resistance, bring this thing down. There was this video, this beautiful video of Jeffrey Sachs at the United Nations talking to this guy is straight from hell, right? Danny Dannon. Have you seen this guy? He looks like the Pepe the Frog or something, right? And you could see Sachs screaming at him. And you know what Sachs said? Sachs said, and Sachs knows, this is suicide. And Sachs is upset because his precious little Zionist project is committing suicide by axis of resistance, which, by the way, is the title of our next episode. This is what is happening. This is what we are seeing. Open your eyes wide, know what to believe and not what to believe. You know what to believe, the resistance, nothing else you need to believe, because if you live 500 years, you'll be able to tell your whatever they are at the time, grandchildren, that you were there when it all happened.
Yes, well, This is a good opportunity, a good moment, as we're getting maybe close to winding down here and a round of final statements. Just to remind you, first, like the stream, share it. There's many of you in the audience, but they're boosted on the algorithm so more people. This was absolutely, I mean, every single one of these Iran versus the Epstein Empire has really warmed my heart, boosted my spirits, and giving me so much to think about and consider, but above all to feel more confident, more determined. And that's what we have to do. So make sure that your comrades, your friends, your family get to feel the same way. Share it, subscribe to the channel. But also, we're always doing our best to support the people of Palestine. So just as a reminder, we are still doing our fundraiser for the Samir Project's Ramadan campaign. There have been quite a number of you who have donated and really helped and supported this campaign. It is now up from the 265,000 pounds I mentioned, it is now up to 267,000. So that is an impact that you are making with your contributions and support. So I thank you so much. Please continue to do that. But let me turn it over to, Sina for some of his final comments, and he wants to show us Sina the economist, no longer Sina the producer, but Sina the economist.
Well,
here we go.
Sina, yeah, it's actually dual use. It's Sina the screenshot hoarder, because I came across this thread and it's been like haunting me, because this thing is way bigger than just oil and this war and Palestine. Like, okay, so for people who are listening to this is a thread from Long Arc News. It doesn't smell like Chat BLT. It may be, who knows, but we'll see. It sounds kind of organic. I don't know. This is what you have to say now, but every long thread on Twitter, you have to wonder, like, is this person Chat BLT? But anyways, the Hormuz closure is not a 6-week shock. It is an 18-month stress test for the global food system. Most allocators are trading the obvious. Oil up, defense up, gold up. They are missing the connective tissue. One third of globally traded fertilizer transits Hormuz. Okay, let's say that again. One third
Definitely
of
AI.
globally
Sina, I'm
traded
calling it now.
fertilizer
This
transits
is
Hormuz.
AI. That's AI. That is
Well, okay, fine.
BLT,
There's no strategic reserve for nitrogelism. There is no strategic reserve for nitrogen fertilizer. Oil has the SPR. Fertilizer has nothing. Okay, SPR is strategic reserve, obviously. Let's go to the next one. A closure during spring planting forces import-dependent farmers to apply significantly less. The African Development Bank warned in 2022 that fertilizer shortages could cut African food production by 20%. Okay. By late summer, vulnerable populations face food price spikes approaching levels NE something NEXI linked to 2008 food riots and 2011 MENA unrest. India, Kharif season on a knife edge. India imports 50 or 60% of its DAP. Nearly all its potash and urea imports climbed 85% year over year. Much of it transiting Hormuz. Kharif sowing begins in June. India absorbs global fertilizer price spikes through subsidies. In 2022-2023, that bill hit 2.5 trillion rupees. A prolonged closure doesn't just threaten 1.4 people's food supply, it detonates the fiscal math. A sovereign balance sheet event disguised as a commodity story. China, the quiet squeeze. China looks isolated at the world's second largest fertilizer producer, but it imports 61% of its sulfur across a critical phosphate input from Gulf suppliers. Actually, you know who has a lot of phosphate? I think, or sulfur? I think Iran does. I'm not sure. I think it was one of the things that Iran was giving Syria for nothing. Maybe I gotta check that. 40% of China's oil and 30% of its LNG, liquid natural gas, transit Hormuz. Rising energy costs feed directly into fertilizer production via the Haber-Bosch process. I don't know what that is. I have to look that up. Worse, China has suspended phosphate exports through August 2026 to secure the domestic supply. Countries that depended on Chinese phosphate now face Hormuz cutting off Gulf supply and Chinese policy cutting off the alternative. Two walls closing simultaneously, like closing in, cutting off, whatever. So like this is for me something that's like I just don't see how this crisis, like right now, because I feel like the only chance they really have, like the imperialists, which is to say, the only chance they really has if this goes on like 6 months. But the thing is, they can't go on 6 months. They can't even go on another 6 days at this rate. I mean, the cost of diesel is like, it's insane right now. Like my son, he's not my son, my fake son. He like told me today, and he was like, diesel's like over $2. Like that's insane right now. We can't afford this level, and it's going to be passed on to us. We were already having a food crisis. We were already having a major affordability crisis. This now makes everything worse. So again, this is one of those examples of like, one of those things that was like, you know, the unforeseen, or maybe not unforeseen, but in the sense that I've always said this, Iran has a double-barrel shotgun to the head of the global economic system. And it's not just like the economic system. It's like multiple heads. It's like, I was thinking about the end of, do you remember the end of, the end of Mice of Men, where the poor guy has to put out Lenny. He's like, here you go. Here, hold the rabbit, Lenny. Here, pet this soft little rabbit. I'm going to put you out of your misery because they're going to come and murder you. So that's what like his friend did. And Iran is like doing that. But instead of Lenny, it's like the global economic system, right? And along with it, our food system. Now, do I laugh at that? Do I smile? Do I have schadenfreude? Obviously not. The financial stuff, yes. But the food stuff like this, like people will die. Like potentially millions if like these, like we are dependent on this fertilizer. We are dependent on this food system. What we're gonna go to small scale farms. We're gonna invent the replicator from Star Trek TNG. Like these are not
Victory
options
garden.
for us. Like this is what we have. Like, yeah, victory garden, defeat gardens, more like it. But yeah, like this is not. We like this adventurism on the part of the Zio-American entity. This will have consequences for like decades, maybe centuries at this point. I mean, who knows? If they really go crazy and they drop nukes on Iran, which they've threatened, which they gleefully threaten all the time. I mean, the guy who put Trump into office, Sheldon Adelson, said it in public. He said, "Oh, just drop a nuke in the desert." Like they talk like this. So I don't know. We're fucked. Yeah, 3D print your
brother
bagels,
Sinner,
folks.
I would hate for this episode to end on big time dooming.
Don't worry, we have David.
Number one, let me tell you that the world sulfur supply, as someone helpfully told us in the chat, is safe because every time Milikovsky opens his mouth, the world sulfur supply is replenished in an instant, and there's an infinite, from where this comes from until we get him into the free people of the world tribunal in al-Quds. I personally won't go into that dooming. I'm calling it now, Sina. This was AI. Some of the information was true. All the predictions are just predictions. There's this thing about economic prediction, including those made by economists and not just AI, is 70% of them are actually wrong. So I wouldn't, go, hey, the world is going to end and all of it.
I mean, the thing is, if 30% of fertilizer disappears, if 30%, like that's not, you can't AI, that's not like a,
no,
it's
I
done.
know,
We're done. We have no food system left.
I'm not arguing with the numbers. What I'm saying is, and I've said it before, it's all over except the genociding, and costs may come to the core. I mean, we've been living on the hog for the past 500 years, those of us who have been born, raised, or lived as settlers in the core, or plunderers in Western Europe, and some of those costs may come to us. Well, that's tough shit, but we've been at it for so long. if there's such a thing as poetic justice, it would be it. But in terms of what we're doing here, we have to look at the general movement. The movement is towards the end of this empire. Will it die peacefully? Of course not. Gracefully? Of course not. Will it cost some of the people in the core who couldn't stop it from inside? I would be very surprised if it didn't. But this is the price we pay. And brother David, told us at the beginning the superpower of what makes Iran different in the sense, and that's that sense of not just faith, but that you have to pay a price if you want to fight for life, fight for good, and fight against evil. And we just have to accept that we are going to pay this price at last. That's okay.
Well, praise the sun. Says, important note, when that tweet talks about food, they're talking about cash crops like soybeans, not food humans are eating. The tweet, although, people do eat soybean-based products, but
cows eat those.
Uses.
Yeah,
we can survive without cows. I know you really want a steak, Sina, but most people in the world for most of human history had meat very infrequently because it was super expensive, and it's only in the modern industrial capitalist overconsumption food system that they have created this demand for the idea that meat is like a regular part of like every meal. Like that's what's happened in the United States. You got to have meat at every meal, and that is totally a distortion of 10,000 years of human history of diet. And we were okay. Maybe health has improved to some extent, but to be honest, with all of the preservatives, additives, and processed food, we've actually probably started harming ourselves much more. So I would say, if we go back to that, the tweet was a Chat GPT prompt for, quote, how does oil impact food production? Now, I don't know if this is exactly correct, but at any rate, that could be part of it. Although we had earlier a point from another poster who said, Chitimacha 1025, there are a few new stories about what's happening in Iran having a potential impact on the nitrogen fertilizers. Independent of this X-thread, may not be AI. So we don't know, but, I think the point Benji is making is that, there's a lot of...
It's going to be catastrophic, guys. We won't be able to throw away 35% of the food we buy anymore. That's what's going to happen to us.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump might die if he can't get cheeseburgers.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that there is a potential silver lining in all of this. But I mean, obviously there are going to be huge economic impacts, right? That we know, like the oil price, and it is true, fertilizer will be super expensive. It's going to have all kinds of effects, but does that mean that we can't adapt to it? Yeah. And does it mean that those pressures might actually be, kind of useful in reorienting our approach?
Actually, this is what happened in the global south, right? Cuba reorganized its agriculture to use much less fertilizer. Venezuela developed food self-sufficiency since the latest round of sanctions. The same is happening in every country. So we'll get a version of those sanctions, and it will be tough for a while, and then we'll learn to live of our own wits instead of just projecting nonsense.
Sina's actually in good shape because he has all kinds of land and a huge greenhouse. So I'm going to go to Sina's house and make sure to eat my fresh veggies in the apocalypse. Make the extra guest bed, Sina. But Dave, maybe we could ask you for some of your roundup final thoughts.
Yeah, I have something kind of succinct that I feel is kind of a positive note, for at least for me to bow out on. But it's sort of this, how we've come to realize that whoever you vote for in the United States of America, you get John McCain. Okay, so that's our problem. That's the problem that the American people need to deal with. Look in the mirror, read the Constitution, and decide whether they want to be fucking passive sheep or actually humans with agency. But I would just say the equivalent in the Islamic Republic of Iran would be whoever you kill in Iran, you're going to get the new Iranian supreme leader. You're going to get the Rais. You're going to get the Rahbar. You're going to get the new Faqih. So, whether American imperialist assholes and Zionists like that or not, it's not up to you. It has nothing to fucking do with you. You're irrelevant. So I would say focus on your criminal, pedophile, rapist, thieving, genocidal leadership, and fuck right off from the Islamic Republic of Iran, who I feel like the world that acted against Iran should feel lucky that with a sound apology and with some heart, you will be ultimately forgiven, and maybe you will be not any of the royalists from LA, because they should not go to Iran. I will warn them against that for their health. But anybody else around the world will be welcome eventually to enjoy the beauty and the culture and the hospitality and the, if you will, human strength of Iran and its nation and the Iranian people. So I think that's really a positive thing for most of the world, and for Iran, Zionists and twerking, sellout OnlyFans Iranian Pahlavi supporters, they're shit out of luck, and I'm going to laugh my ass off for the rest of my life about that. I have also realized, though, and seriously, and I'm not to be negative, but I consider it positive, but I'm never going to go to Cello Kebab in LA again, because I don't want to have to punch some asshole in the fucking face. So I'll just get my kebab in a place where none of those bastards, we say toh masag in Farsi, where none of them will ever be able to enjoy it, and that's in the Islamic Republic of Iran. With some of you, my brothers, inshallah.
Inshallah. I
So
think
my
North York.
ending. While Iranians and Palestinians are still being slaughtered, that's about as positive as I can get. But
Yes. Well, I
we
guess
will
North
survive
York.
this. Yes, and we will survive American and Zionist stupidity and arrogance. Absolutely.
Inshallah. I guess North York is off limits for me and Cena. That's the LA equivalent. And in fact, actually,
where I grew up there.
I know you were surrounded by them, Cena. But the thing is I saw actually. I was going to play these, but we're winding down. But I saw dueling Vancouver protests. One was these fascistic
The
monarchists.
Vancouver ones are insane too.
It looked like a Nuremberg rally, and I think Samira Mohiuddin actually published her tweet. She said, diaspora holds Nuremberg rallies, and I mean, these were people draped in their Pahlavi flag, with the lion, being led in a chant, "Thank you, Trump. Thank you, Trump." They were doing this, and thank you, Netanyahu.
No, they said thank you. He said thank you.
That's true. He said thank you, Trump.
It's okay. It's okay, guys. We're parking our tanks on their lawns.
That's right.
And it's all over about the shouting. Don't worry about that. They're just a bunch of clowns.
But there was another one that was also, kind of no war, and it was also a very substantial one. And Dave sent me. So finally, I think maybe there's being a little waking up of, people in the imperial core, that this is spiraling way out of control, and that our leaders are taking us into devastation and destruction. For the empire, which is a good thing, but also, causing a lot of slaughter and genocide, because, as Benji was saying, that seems to be the only tactical plan that survives the battle, right? Their plan A, B, and C, what they're left with is just doing genocide on, people, because that is, of course, one of the, if not the paramount Western value.
I'll bet they're basically asking ChatGPT, what do I do next? I'll bet you my bottom dollar that's what these idiots are doing.
Well, maybe they're not going to get good answers, because a lot of the data centers that they invested in the Gulf have been hit by Iranian missiles. So AI poof, the bubble is bursting right now. It was a bubble. It would have burst, but Iran has punctured perhaps the bubble by, undermining the capabilities of all of this like global finance being invested in the Gulf countries to sponsor.
And also there was this paper just came out that if you have a conversation with AI, the more you ask recursive questions, the more nonsense it spouts. So the more they go to AI and say, so what do I do now? What do I do now? I did this, I did that. The more the answers are just made up by the AI. So, there's no way you win the war that way.
when
Basically,
AI
doesn't
gets
happen.
like to that point where it's clear that no other answer is like helping you and you're really depressed, doesn't it tell you to commit suicide? I mean, so maybe that's what they are getting
That's
suicide.
what it said. Commit suicide by AOR. And they
Yep.
went, yeah,
We
that's
will
a
have
good
an
idea.
episode, the next episode of Axis of Resistance versus the Epstein Empire, because we're going to redub it. That is going to be Suicide by AOR. But I just wanted to, like, kind of in my own conclusion, there had been a question in the chat about, will Bahrain the government in Bahrain get overthrown? And there was a couple of points. And I actually had this question earlier today about the status of it, because I saw some reports overnight early this morning about, protests, lots of like things in flames and people being shot at, and while also there missiles falling. So it was kind of a dramatic situation, but some people were denying that, like, the so-called, I don't even like to call them royal family, the ruling family happened to be ruling family had left, and that there was imminent toppling of the government. And so I asked some friends about it. A friend of the show, Lara Shihai, who has contacts across the Gulf and people she knows, and she got back to me and said to our chat, said people are indeed in the streets of Bahrain trying to overthrow their government. This is like, during the stream, she sent these messages. The royal family fled. So, okay, the ruling family has fled, according to sources that she has, that it seems to be clear that perhaps they have. The situation has become unmanageable. And in fact, actually, a lot of these elites have already decamped, to other places further away. There was a lot of suggestion.
Why would they stay? Why would they stay? Their whole their whole protection racket is gone.
Well, it's exactly like what the Pahlavi was called. I mean, I think I heard Ali Alizadeh say this, and I remember this being the case, is that there were so many times where the Pahlavis, had to run away from their own people because they wanted to, rule themselves, that he was called the suitcase king. It's like his bag was packed at every time in case he had to flee at a moment's notice. The USA, CIA, would tell him, yeah, get the hell out of there. We can't control this situation, and he would jet. So they are nothing other than that. I mean, they are this, kind of like, when you talk about strategic depth, I mean, they are there because the U.S., first the British and then the U.S. has put them there for a purpose. So anyway, just completing what Lara sent me, Iran and Hezbollah. Well, okay, that's she's saying will hopefully liberate us all. Well, yes, indeed, we hope that. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're seeing, the process of that happening. And she said that apparently these protests have really been nonstop in Bahrain. So, that's an interesting update, about the situation there. Last thing that I'll just say by way of conclusion, is that, of course, give to the Samir Project. I hope more of you have donated over the last, few minutes since we've been doing this, but also is this, this post that we had, that I saw, that I really loved, from Helia Dutari. So I'm going to share again. She made a really interesting post about the difference between Israelis hiding in bunkers and millions of Iranis bravely being in the streets, and that the difference she characterized as a settler colony. How settler colonists behave, ready to leave at a moment's notice as well. If things get bad, so many of them are fleeing, finding a way to leave, or cowering in their, bunkers and shelters and so on.
Circle the wagons, isn't it? It's really circle the wagons.
Yeah, it's well,
Right, so-
yeah, it's circle the wagons or it's get the hell out of Dodge, like one or the other. Like, I mean, but that the contrast is like of an indigenous people, how do indigenous people, respond to these threats and attacks and bombardments? They stand up, they stay where they are, and they stand up for themselves, one another. And so I thought that was just a wonderful contrast. And it reminded me of, and I wrote a little bit about it, but it reminded me so much of this video that I saw, the of and the contrast between the people and what they're chanting in these squares. Lots of videos that we saw last time that Dave had sort of shared with me. Singing, drawing on traditional Shi'i religious the themes of martyrdom, love for the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as folk culture and folk songs in places like Ahvaz, the Lures. There, we're singing, things that are related to their particular folk culture, but they were suffused now. These traditional motifs are suffused with revolutionary resistance language and meaning now. And also something very important, solidarity. Solidarity with Palestine. This is not just, it also reminds us that the axis of resistance has developed a new technique, a new social technology of demonstrating their resolve and determination against, the empire and for anti-colonial resistance, not just for themselves, but for others and the world. So it's not just a question of we are indigenous nationalists and we will fight to stay on our land. They do, but they also recognize solidarity. So remember the Ansarullah rallies, those incredible Friday rallies, even amidst US declared war on them for 6 weeks, they came out in bigger numbers. They came out more defiant, and they were chanting that we are going to free al-Quds. In fact, they said at the time when there was the most horrible situation of starvation with the Gaza genocide, they put out, claims. I saw so many things and these big rallies, even though they were under attack as well from Israel and the US, they said, you other Arab countries, get out of the way. We are right now ready to march. If you let us go through your territory, we are ready to march on al-Quds. That's the revolutionary spirit. Tehran or al-Quds, Sana'a or al-Quds, Beirut or al-Quds. It's going to be al-Quds. And they have done.
And that's the Ummah. And that's the Ummah, folks. The Ummah only exists when you transcend the boundaries of your sectarianism and your community. Going out and helping a fellow Muslim who's part of your community and being Muslim-y together. Sorry, that's not the Ummah. The Ummah only existed before the fitnas, before the first civil wars. And if you want to embody the Ummah, transcend your local, parochial, like sectarian boundaries and all of these, I won't use expletives, but these people who thought that sectarianism and whatever, just their hate was going to help Syria out somehow. So when and if, like the Houthis, like Ansar Allah, you can put yourself out there for fellow Muslims who are not of your traditional sect or tradition, there you have created the Ummah. You are helping to sustain and extend the Ummah. So the Ummah doesn't just exist as this warm feeling that I'm a Muslim and there's an entire global community of Muslims. That's just some bullshit, actually. That doesn't exist, folks. It only exists when you take action as a human being that God gave you the ability to engage in. So that's my last.
I'll make one concluding comment, if I may, about we opened tonight's episode with the selection of Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei as the successor of his father. And someone in the chat said, yeah, he's going to want to avenge his father. I actually believe that is not the case. The best homage he is going to give to his father is not to avenge him, but to complete the life's mission of Khamenei, who actually volunteered to be martyred for it, which is the final liberation of al-Quds, which also means the final expulsion of the Epstein Empire from West Asia, which also means, for, by the way, all the economic reasons that Sina mentioned, the death blow to the vampire Epstein Empire. That's
Indeed.
my
And
concluding comments.
I guess just to complete the sort of contrast that I saw was not only that they're writing a new story in the annals of resistance, right? You know, in this creation of this kind of defiant popular resistance culture, but that you compare it to like a video that I saw of all these Israelis in a bunker, you know, thinking this is defiance and that, you know, they can handle it, they can take it, playing and dancing to I Will Survive, the Gloria Gaynor, you know, I will all individually kind of like, you know, jumping around, singing and all that. It's an English language song. They're in this bunker. And all they're talking about is I will survive. Okay.
And it's about survival from sexual abuse, I'll have you know, in case
Well, that's
you didn't know.
interesting. I didn't even know that they've appropriated that. How appropriate for the Epstein Empire's anthem.
Absolutely.
You know, so, at any rate, the contrast is really huge, and you know that should give us hope and faith. We have to, of course, be real and watch what's happening, and you know, be clear. But I think, you know, here on day 9, we can say the end game, inshallah, is in sight, you know, and more power to the resistance. And I want to just remind everybody, please give to the Samir Project and say that the chat has been absolutely hopping. And it's beautiful to see this community expanding. I see a lot of like familiar, you know, handles and people who have been around and people who I know from other contexts who are here, as well as many, many new people raising good questions, discussing with one another. And I thank you for your participation, for being part of these special evenings where we've had this opportunity to collect together, to talk about what's going on, and to give one another not only analysis and understanding, but hope and encouragement, and to propel us towards action. So what can you be doing in this time of disinformation? What can you be doing, you know, in any respect that to put the brakes on this terrible war and create solidarity and resistance in all its forms in your community, in your life, in your workplace? Talk to people, inform people about what's going on, share these streams as resources. There's a lot of good stuff out there, not only here, but on East as a podcast. Resistance is Fertile. And you know, all of our other comrades, Lara Shihai's Psychic Militancy, Jay and others at Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. You know, there's a you know,
Justin's sitrep, we're still waiting for it.
Yes, we're waiting for Justin's sitrep. I was, you know, even gonna suggest, you know, I was hoping it was going to be out last night so that I could read it and then have some thoughts that we could react to here, because he always has such interesting insights. So, you know, what we should do also, yes, do check out Guerrilla History. History is a resource. History is a weapon. Don't forget your history. So
right now,
yeah. So,
yeah.
All right, everyone, peace with justice, solidarity to you all, and free Palestine.
Palestine, and victory to the free people of the world.
Amen.
Free Palestine. Bye, guys.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.